my name is David. I'm from Youngstown, Ohio. I'm starting a lawn care business this year. So I recently purchased the Entrepreneur Academy Whole Ball of Wax program. So you get every program that Brian offers and a coaching call. So any questions you still have at the end of the academy, when you're finished with it, you can ask him and he will at least steer you in the right direction. So I would absolutely recommend it. It'll make you money in the long run with just the information that you're getting. So if you're deciding on whether or not to get it, get it. Absolutely. 10 out of 10 would recommend. Thank you, Brian, and thank you for all the information you gave me. I appreciate it.
You're now listening to the Fullerton Unfiltered podcast. Straightforward, no-nonsense business advice. Completely unfiltered. Grow your business. Grow your life. Now, here's your host, Brian Fullerton.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Fullerton Unfiltered podcast. It's your host, Brian Fullerton, here hanging with you guys this morning. Well, guys, today we are going to jump right on into it. We have a really special guest joining us on the line, and we're going to get a fun macro perspective about buying equipment, shortages in the supply chains, and what's going on out there in the economy, and also what does that look like for buying lawnmowers and equipment into 2022. We are joined today by a special guest. We got none other than Ed Wright, the CEO of Wright Manufacturing, joining us on the phone today. So Ed, welcome to the show, brother. How you doing?
Good morning. Good to be with you today.
Absolutely. Well, Ed, you are the CEO of Wright Manufacturing, like I said a second ago, and you are at the helm of one of the larger, I call it aircraft carrier type of companies that are out there in the marketplace. And the last, let's slow down to speed up. But the last 12 to 18 months have been a very unique time, a very challenging time, a very interesting time in manufacturing and distribution and everything in between. And so one thing I'd love to do on the show is get the other side of the story, the company side, the manufacturing side, sometimes with different guests, because we're in the field, we're mowing grass, we're, if I need a new trimmer or a new blower or even a new mower, I just, go down 20 minutes down the road to my dealer and, go buy a new lawnmower or a new trimmer. That may not be the narrative going into 2022 and maybe for a short while after that. So before we jump into that whole, topic and story, because I know a lot of folks are going to be excited about hearing what's going on and best ways to position their business for next year. But can you get us maybe up to speed on your, story for the last 5, 10, 15 years you've been in the industry? What's your guys' story and how did you get to the helm of running the company today?
Sure thing. So we started as a landscape company in the early 80s. My parents started cutting grass out of college, and in the mid-'80s, which was when I was born, they started a business making grass catchers, steel grass catchers, and the Velke Selkie, and also a software business called Clip that did billing, scheduling, routing. It was one of the first software packages to support landscape operations. It was originally written for our own company, but then became its own division. And so we were 3 companies at that time: landscaping, software, and accessory products. In the mid-'90s, was an evolution to just step up from a sulky onto the machine, which was the stand-on mower. So around the mid-'90s, we consolidated specifically to be a manufacturing company. We've been doing that ever since. I studied mechanical engineering and got involved with the company. Growing up, I worked in the factory, and I think GIE this last year wasn't. It's gone by different names. It used to be a dealer show, but I think it was something like my 30th Louisville show.
Wow! So
I've been around lawnmowers for a long time, making lawnmowers. I did a lot of welding through high school and worked in the tooling shop and that kind of thing. Got involved with product development out of college. Did that for about 15 years, and then over the past couple of years, my parents got out of the business somewhat, and so then I took on the reins, and it's been quite an interesting time to take on that role, right? Going into COVID and all that, but it's been a good year, a good time. I think, the engineering aspect of the things, I think, does give me some context for the supply chain stuff, because a lot of those years I was working very closely with our suppliers, and I'm heavily back into that today, supporting, our ability to maintain production.
Wow, that's interesting. Now, and then the outside of the going to school for mechanical engineering and then working in the company, you guys have seen the company just evolve. It just in general. I mean, you get like kind of two parallel paths: your own personal and professional career, and then you also were working in the company, and now you're working a little bit more on the company, right?
Yeah.
What's the feeling like of watching your parents, build this large manufacturing company and mower business, because Wright Mower makes really good product. A lot of you guys know, like, trust the Wright brand, the Wright product. Really, really good lawnmowers. If you guys are out there, a little plug for the Wright manufacturing team. The Wright ZK, the Wright Standard X, there's not a coaching call I do, Ed, where we talk about gated backyard mowers, and I'm like, well, there's two or three options. You got the B, the Intensity I, maybe an X Mark Staris, although that's kind of hasn't had its exact day in the sun.
Yep.
And then I said a Skag. I think it's still a V ride, but a 36.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So it's always like my three suggestions are those. And I was literally just doing a coaching call with a gentleman last week, and we're like looking up mower brands. He's looking to expand, and I said, well, where's your Exmark dealer? It's 40 minutes away. Where's your Skag dealer? It's 40 minutes away. And I said, have you looked at Wright? And he goes, I don't even know what a Wright mower is. And I said, oh, dude, they're like the gold standard of like stand-ons. And he goes, okay, I mean, no pun intended, right?
Sure.
But so we looked up a little research tool on the coaching call while we were live and on my computer. And I said, dude, there's a dealer 7 minutes away down the road. And he was in like Northwest Metro Atlanta, Georgia. And
okay. Yep. Uh-huh.
So literally, he goes, oh my God, I never even looked at him. So we're like on the website together, tooling around. And I think by the time we're done with the coaching call, he's going with a 36-inch Intensity and then a ZK 60. And he's going to be off to the races next year for 2022. But I told him, I said, hey, before you like decide to, put your game plan in motion in April, May, June, I said, you might, if you're going to go all in, you might want to start considering putting those orders in now. He's like, for real?
That's absolutely true.
Yeah. So take me on the journey of the company for a couple quick minutes, because I think it'll really provide some context about your involvement in the minutia, like the details, the day to day, because you really have seen this company grow from, like you said, your parents probably welding in their their garage or their pole barn to a pretty substantial company that it is today.
Yeah, I mean, so the company's definitely gone through its evolutions and its challenges, and things like our early years. A guy by the name of Dane Skag, who originally owned Bobcat and created Skag, as we know Skag today. He also created Great Dane. The Great Dane company was based on a copy of our patents. So we went through litigation with that for many years, which was pretty difficult. But we built it up, and at the end of the day, we are a small company. A lot of the people I've worked with for most of my life, and it's just one day after the next. And we're very grateful for a huge amount of long-term customers. We have a lot of people that have been buying Wrights for 15, 20 years steadily, and that's also a really important anchor to our business. And so, although we're a big company a certain way, we're a small company in another way. Mm-hmm. And we do one thing very specific, and it's to design and manufacture mowers. And that really helps what we do. So that the other side of saying that is that we do use wholesale distributors. So we've got about 10 different distributors throughout the country, and they stockpile equipment going into the spring every year. They're the ones who do the demos. They work with our dealers. They distribute parts in the dealers, in most cases next day. And so that also really helps simplify and accelerate the business that we do today. Sure. But that's changed. This year, where we've had a couple good years of really good sales, we've been increasing production capacity, and then you have component shortages, and so we're headed into spring, not just us, but as an industry, into a really unique, I think probably once in a lifetime experience to this extent. Yeah, once in a lifetime shortage when it comes to April.
Wow. Now let me ask you this, because when I think I was over there probably, what was it, 3 or 4 years ago already? Like, time flies.
Yeah, it'd be about that. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, literally snap your fingers. It's 3 years later, but I was there. You invited Stanley Dirt Monkey and myself down to do some mower demos. And it was a really, really fun day. I mean, I literally think it was the hottest day of the year that year. it had to have been 95 real field degrees. I mean, and so Ed has every
Stan is like, you can hold on, like, so Stan is like this super high energy guy, right?
Yeah.
And so like Brian and I are like struggling to keep up with him. Yes. Yeah, it was really hot. It was a good day.
So some folks don't they totally don't believe that like I'm an introvert and very low, like not low energy, just very low key. You know, I'm not like the initiator. I'm very like just calm. Okay. And so you and I, we get around Stan, and Stan is the alpha of the alphas, right? And you and I walk into like the back manufacturing area. There's a whiteboard on the wall, this little conference room, and you know, we're just like kind of like game planning. What do we want to do today a little bit? And so Stan's just like, let's just get out there and start working it. And so from I think 8:39 in the morning to 5:30 in the afternoon, we're literally out there testing a dozen different stand-on mowers. It's 95 degrees. We didn't stop for lunch. We didn't stop to take a pee break. I don't even think we got drinks until about 4:00 in the afternoon. And Stan is just like, let's do another video. Let's shoot it again. Get this angle. Get this mower. And it was a super fun time. But man, I can.
So then it gets to dusk, right? And we're on our way like 5 miles to dinner, right? And so
yeah,
in those 5 miles, Stan stops us about 4 times to stop and get a video of this and then that. I think one was a black colored cat.
Yes.
A loader. And then we went behind a dealership where they had a stack of recalled frames. He's talking about the commitment to quality. And
yeah, I forgot about that.
Like four videos just on the way to dinner after that.
I'm literally like comatose. Like I'm just like, I'm drooling on myself in the corner, you know, and Stan ran me ragged, and I'm like, this guy's an animal. So there's always like I don't know, like a bigger fish or like somebody who helps. And I thought I wanted it until I get around somebody who like is killing it. And that's why Stan's got what he's got going on. Right.
Yeah. Huge respect to Stan.
Dude, for sure. And then that didn't end, because the next morning on that trip, I actually had to catch a flight, and I'm like, hey, there's these like Mulchmate guys on the road. They were shooting me some messages on Instagram. And so you guys dropped me off at the airport, and I said, hey, go bug these guys. They're like 10 minutes down the road. And so that's where that breakout Mulchmate video with Nick Carlson, where Nick tells the story way better than I do, but boom, boom, boom on the steel door, and Nick opens it up, and somebody's like, or no, actually it was one of his employees, goes, hey, there's that dirt monkey guy here. And Nick Carlson's like, who's the dirt monkey? And so Stan like walks in there, goes, what do you got? And just like takes over the place. And so Nick Carlson, like somebody tells him, dude, this is the dirt monkey. Like this guy can like change our life. And he did. And so Stan shot a video, and they were like doing the whole Mulchmate demo and all this mess. And I didn't get to see it, but you were there, right? Is that basically how it went down?
Yeah. So Stan's flight was like an hour. So we walked in, and Nick just about fell over. But you know, he got equipment set up. We went down to the mulch depot. We shot an introductory video. I was Stan's cameraman that day. And within about 50 minutes, we had him back to the airport. And
wow.
You know, I think when Stan put up the video, I mean, right away it was like 100,000 views, I think, and really brought some visibility to the cool stuff that Nick was doing.
Yeah,
still doing today.
And I was just going to say, I know Nick highly respects you and your input on manufacturing and thought process and design, because I talk to Nick all the time, and he's always talking about Ed Wright, because you guys are in the same vicinity. So, so those days were super fun, and the idea was to compare, not really to say like Wright versus everybody. It wasn't like Detroit versus everybody, but it was to just have the dozen stand-on mowers out there and talk about pros and cons and goods and bads and this and that. And that's where I really got to learn a little bit more about your thought process and why you guys make the equipment you do and the way you design it the way you do. And I was really, really impressed. It wasn't this pitch fest or sell fest. Honestly, like I maybe had like 25,000 subscribers. I was a nobody. Stan had 150,000 subscribers, and he's like, you know, the man. And I'm just like grateful and thankful to even be there. But it was really cool to see the way you guys build your mowers and why you guys do certain things that maybe other people don't. And that's a whole nother maybe story for a whole nother time. But what I really got out of that was Ed knows what he's talking about. And so you were talking about why you guys do these larger pulleys and why you have these all these oils and these greases that are sealed into certain things and the bearings. And I'm like, sure, dude, I don't know. Like I'm in the field, I'm just cutting grass, trying to make it happen. But it made me really appreciate and respect what you guys are doing as a company, right? So, so that being said, you've been intimately involved in the building, the design, and now the procurement of a lot of these parts and whatnot to build a mower. So, what are we looking at here for the last few years? How have we traditionally bought product, and how have you guys traditionally got it to market? And then, what are we looking for or looking to going into 2022? What's going on out there?
Yeah, so I mean, this is a setup that's been happening for years, and then COVID came and it really turned it on its head.
Okay.
In general, so a couple backdrop items. First off is that, especially more on the commercial side of the equipment, a lot of that stuff is built pre-season. It's put into stock, and a lot of it sells right through April. And, so production is pretty steady all year long. And so there's this amount of inventory out there that moves along, and that's normally in place. So that's just one piece of it that's feeding into it. And for us, we were growing somewhat out of that inventory. And so we happened to go into COVID fairly tight. The other thing that happened is that there's a company called, one of their brands is Lansin. So this company in China makes a bunch of engines for all different kinds of things. They're also the engine that's in Harbor Freight. I'm trying to remember what the name of that engine is, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
The inexpensive repower engine. A lot of people put on log splitters and stuff like this. Well, that engine shows up in a couple different names. It's I think it's the same engine block that Exmark has an Exmark labeled engine that would be made by the same people. And it's a decent engine, especially if you have the upgrades that Exmark puts on it. But what is happening is they got caught up. This engine company got caught up in an anti-dumping lawsuit around trying to undercut the market in the U.S. And, it came back at them with really high tariffs. And so that put a huge amount of pressure on the other engine manufacturers, Briggs, Kohler, Kawasaki. And so, and they already had fairly tight, capacity-wise, fairly tight pre-COVID. So then we get to COVID, okay? And right when COVID comes on the map, it's spring. I mean, I remember what you were dealing with. You want to get out and do cleanups, and you've got telling you can't get out and work and all that.
Yep.
But you know what? It was like a 3-week thing where people pulled back their mower purchases. But as soon as cleanups were done and people said, "Hey, the sky's not falling," then people started buying mowers like crazy. And what happened is that a lot of people moved out of cities, or they moved from the suburbs into slightly more rural areas. A lot of people started establishing, a homestead, or spent more time outdoors. So there was a huge amount of equipment that was being sold to property owners, and it's all the same. Some of the parts are the same parts, the throttle plate on a consumer engine and then the throttle plate on a commercial engine. In most cases, is the exact same part, right?
Oh, okay.
So there's things like this or the clutch, right? The clutch might come from the same company, but there might be a consumer spec and then heavy duty commercial spec. But when all that's taken off, it puts constraints on the whole industry, both the commercial and consumer side of it. So now, and obviously some manufacturers started pulling back, or they started holding off on inventory coming in because they weren't sure where things were going to go with the economy or whatever. But as we've seen, the economy has been roaring, maybe artificially, but it's been roaring, and people have been buying tons of stuff, and that sucked out all that inventory over the past 2 years. So now as we come into this season, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, so you have reduced production, you have increased demand.
Yep.
In any scenario, that's a perfect storm. But now you had, like you said, the pandemic and COVID and these supply chain issues. It's just a compounding issue. Yeah,
it sure is, and it's somewhat of a complex and nuanced issue. Originally it really was shortages, and I don't really call it a supply chain shortage issue anymore. It's a capacity issue now, but originally it was a shortage.
Okay.
You had a disruption where people stopped orders. They halted shipments of some small components from China, and we'll talk about that in a second. But that's where you had, first off, getting plain old steel was a challenge, just regular structural plate, or we couldn't get 2x4s to make pallets, or couldn't get nails. Every industrial supply, every building supply, every home good, Home Depot, Lowe's, no nails, right? So it was crazy. We saw that kind of stuff happening. So then that kind of blew over. And then we started seeing this thing where we had suppliers where they could deliver the orders that we had in the pipeline, but they couldn't deliver after that because they didn't have their raw material coming in. So that was sort of like a second cycle of issues. And then we started seeing this thing where you have the congestion at the port of LA, and there's all these ships that can't get through and all that. And even today, I mean, I think they say there's 120 ships or something out there today, but that's no longer the issue. Actually, I can't think of a single issue of all components we have issues with right now. I can't think of a single one that is on the water. So I describe it as the head of the snake. You know, that inventory has become flowing in, has started flowing in. There's still a lot on the water, but demand is for the most part being met on that material that's flowing through.
Okay.
So what we're up against now is anybody who makes a outdoor power equipment component in the U.S. has really, really high demand for a business that's seasonal and typically, you know, the building level all the time, and they just can't keep up. And so now we're, you know, for example, some of the engine manufacturers, you know, they might employ a huge amount of people in the town where they are, and so they just can't expand. Or maybe they have particular machining centers that take a year or two to install, and they're completely maxed out running them all shifts. So those types of things now creates this baseline capacity issue that's going to continue to affect us for more than a year. I think, you know, I think even next spring, it's not going to be that dealer inventories are completely back up to normal levels. There'll be inventory there, but it's going to be more than a 1 year issue to kind of cycle through what's going on here.
Wow. Let me ask you this. So Liz and I are in the process of building a home, and it's so funny. Like we're talking, you know, two different silos, right? Home building and construction, but we're talking mowers and manufacturing, but it's all like the same general manufacturing and distribution ecosystems and worlds, right? Like it's the parallels are a little uncanny. Like, and so we're noticing all these things because I'm watching on YouTube. I'm subscribed to that Wright or to the Wright Manufacturing YouTube channel, and you put out I think a weekly video, and I'm always watching, and you talk about a lot of this supply chain stuff. So I'm always intrigued so I can be educated and help other people that with our platform, right? I want to be an informed you know, influencer, if you will, and I don't want to put out bad info or wrong info. So while I'm on YouTube, you know, I see Ed Wright's videos pop up talking about new product or just, you know, Wright updates. They're just fun, good videos that you shoot on your iPhone and, you know, a camera, and it's really cool to hear your like the voice of the company. Well, then the next suggested video is the economic ninja. This guy, you know, drinking his coffee, chilling in the Home Depot parking lot on his you know, cell phone, talking about lumber and distribution and supply chain and really the mills and all this other stuff. So here's a question I have for you, and maybe you can shine some more light on it. Is he said the issue isn't necessarily what he was saying that the investment for the companies, like the mills, for example, and the lumber, this is the example he was giving, it doesn't really behoove them to, let's say some company has a mill or 5 mills, and I don't know what a mill looks like. It could be, you know, the size of a house. It could be the size of an Amazon factory, whatever. But he goes, it doesn't really behoove the lumber mills to open up 2, 3, 4 mills and make, you know, $5, $10, $20, $50 million investments for this potentially artificial growth we're having in the economy, the spike in demand. He goes, so that being said, they're keeping capacity. They're running 2 shifts and 3 shifts. They have what they have going 24/7, but it doesn't really. They're making more money on what they're currently producing, and they're making more money, more profit. So why would they increase production? Why would they make a $50 million investment into another lumber mill when they can keep production at where it's at? You guys know supply and demand. It's really simple economics back in high school. If supply is up and demand, if supply is down and demand is up, or even if supply is steady and demand is up, they're getting top dollar. So why would they? What's the incentive for them to build another mill and to increase production because their price is going to drop? So it was this really interesting standoff, right? And so so how does that relate to the mower industry? Are there parallels? Is it similar? Like, does it behoove Kohler and Kawasaki and Briggs and Stratton to build another plant that is going to take 2 years and $50 million to bring online to meet this current demand? Is that demand going to be here in 12 or 18 months. I guess that's my question for you. If you guys need long contracts, no contracts, training resources, programs, coaching calls, right? That's all there at launchpreneuracademy.com. So I just want to say a big thank you for supporting that website. A bunch of you guys picked up the whole ball of wax. Whole ball of wax promotion goes through Christmas Eve. That's 20% off that bundle. Normally it's $9.99. If you added it all up, it's like $3,200, $3,300 worth of resources on the website that you get for $9.99. And right now, promo code ALLIN20 saves 20% there. So it's $800, right? That's a phenomenal deal. I'm just telling you, if you're going all in next spring, crazy value. By the way, we have a bunch of new resources already coming, and then a bunch more that we're looking to build through winter. And so all of those documents that get added, any of the training programs, any of the resources that we add to the website, you get free lifetime updates and upgrades to anything new. It will go up in price. The whole ball of wax will probably be $12.99 or $14.99. Don't wait to get access to all the resources that we have now. Phenomenal deal. And I'm telling you, we have 4, 5, 8 new resources that are going to be coming in the spring. Promo code ALLIN20 saves 20%.
So yeah, great question. And I think in our industry, I don't think there's any kind of collusion or something where people are trying to not produce as much, the prices go up. Everybody's trying to produce the maximum they amount. But when it comes to looking at investments, what part of what I do is I look at and I create financial models around what I believe to be what I call fleet consumption. So that's, we look at retail sale, we look at factory shipments, we look at the inventory, look at all the things that are moving through the digestion. But at the end of the day, there's X amount of acreage that gets cut in the U.S., right? Mm-hmm. And it changes a little bit every year. When the housing starts up, that acreage increases a little bit. But you have a fleet age. And when that fleet ages, that's a reservoir of potential future equipment that will sell. When a bunch of new equipment sells through, then that fleet age gets younger, which means that it's going to be a while before, demand picks up again. Mm. And, it's not like COVID caused more grass to grow, right? Mm-hmm. So why is everybody buying mowers? What it's doing is it's creating a younger fleet age, which will probably mean that we're not going to see sustained levels of high sales like we see today. And so, for companies like us, we don't want to hire a bunch of people only to, spend 3 months training them and then, in 6 months have to let them go. That's not how we want to do business. And you can't afford to make, huge capital investments unless you believe that you see strong growth for 5 or 10 years out, right? So a lot of these mills are saying, hey, the market's crazy, there's shortage of lumber and whatever, but, we've already seen lumber go through coming now into the second cycle where even over a couple of months, it completely swings from one side to the other. And these companies, they have to look at long-term stuff before making capital investments. We believe that, it's not just about retail, housing starts and that kind of thing. It's also, do we make a better mousetrap? And if we do, can we continue to outgrow the rate of the underlying market? And I think that's true in many cases. So we are making certain investments to create more capacity, but it doesn't make a huge difference if we create capacity, but let's say we can't get enough, whatever component, especially like engines and transmissions. If we can't get those components, then that capacity we've created is for nothing, and ultimately makes the equipment more expensive if you make capital investments that you can't utilize. Right.
Well, and that's the interesting standoff, right? Like there's so much increased demand. The capacity is everybody's at capacity, right?
Yep.
And so like, other than working a third shift, and many people already are, and keeping these factories moving 24/7, what would you do? I mean, that's the interesting question I have sometimes for some people that are griping. I'm like, well, what would you do? Would you invest 10, 20, $50 million with no prospects that the COVID relief money, the stimmy money, these new, I don't know what you call it, the new trends of people moving to the burbs, right? Like you were talking about.
Yep.
Is all this sustainable? 18, 24 months from now, is this going to be the same trends of all 2 or 3 of these perfect storm scenarios all still happening? I don't know. I don't know. Like some of these companies are publicly traded and they have a lot of people to answer to. And if you're a private company, do you want to, in this volatility of this economy and not to get political, but maybe not the most pro business administration currently, like, do you want to make those capital investments? I don't know. I'm thinking from my own company. There's times when I've like spent money and I'm getting low interest rates and I'm like, let's go. Right now I'm maybe not so much doing that. And so the economy kind of slows down and there's like sludge in the engine here, the economic engine. So,
and we are seeing price rejection. Right now we're starting to get into a phase where people look at stuff and they get sticker shock and they're like, you know what? I think I'm just going to wait this out.
Absolutely.
I'm going to skip the steak and eat chicken instead, right? Is the analogy.
Yeah.
And that's a sign that maybe things will plateau or, I don't know. One thing that we're thankful for in our line of work and in your line of work as well is that regardless of the economy, the grass grows. Actually, we're as an industry more dependent on weather than we are on the stock market and the availability of, bank funding and all that stuff that floats around in the big markets.
Sure.
We're like farmers. When the grass grows, we all have a lot of work to do. And I'm thankful for that.
Yeah. And that's a great point. I think that's something that some of us realized or figured out, or, let's be honest, in March of 2020, we were all confused and didn't know what to do. And we were all making decisions off the best data that we all could at the time. And we still are. But you were totally right when you said about 3-4 weeks later, everybody realized, okay, the world's, not going to end, we think. And there's work to do and the grass is starting to grow. From Virginia north, everything was greening up and grass has got to start getting cut. And that's a whole nother story for a whole nother time of like, maybe you can, maybe you can't because your state is shutting you down, but that's a whole nother story.
Well, we also knew that you don't get COVID when you're outside.
Oh yeah. Only when you touch a gas pump as a low income worker though. Right. Which is what my governor said, but I digress. But yeah, talk about the industry that is probably the most, I don't want to say like protected, but the industry probably least susceptible to risk to a degree is all of us out there all day outdoors mowing grass and only having one or two guys in a truck as it is, right? But again, we're all learning as we go. But that is an interesting perspective, is that price rejection, because you're starting to see the lumber pile up. You're starting to see, last year, for example, people wanted to build a deck for, $2, $3, $4 and then all of a sudden it was $4, $5, $6, $7 And some people said, you know what, let's go for it. And some people said, you know what, it's not a big deal for me to wait another year or two and maybe let production or like you said, capacity or even demand slow down and then go build the deck later. Liz and I, right now, literally, you guys heard maybe one of our more recent episodes, we're postponing our home build because the price of the home is 20% more. And we knew we knew it'd be more expensive, but on a $200,000 home, 20% it's still a chunk. On the home we're building, 20% is a lot of money. And so Liz and I said, not that we're anticipating necessarily prices coming down 15 of that 20% or anything like that. We're just saying, you know what, it's okay for us to take another year, bank some more money. We're totally debt free now. And we're just increasing our bandwidth to be able to support a purchase like that. But I told Liz, I said, how in the world can everything be, lumber and all this, the cost of the home be 20% more? I was talking to my builder and I said, what's the guarantee that it's not 20% more next year? And I'm like, go ahead. Can you weigh in on that?
I can tell you, we're in the process of a price increase, and I've just spent 3-4 weeks doing a really deep dive on our supply chain and what things that we see in the economy, and like what you see in the news with the CPI and the PPI and all these indexes. Yeah. Those are lagging from the reality that we face on a daily basis. And we have very, very live data on what's going on. And even if you do look at some of the published numbers like that, you have the CPI, right? That's consumer prices, and it's not at 20%. Like you said, housing it costs you 20% more to build a house, right? Mm-hmm. But if you look at the price producers in the producers index, you'll see that it's higher, which means that that's going to hit consumers at some point, right? Mm-hmm. And then I look at what's going on in our operations, and although the cost of mowers is up, we're our margin is tighter than ever before because the costs come to you faster than the prices, can go up. And also, we're not trying to take advantage of the situation. My belief is the most responsible thing for us to do is to try to say, okay, where do we think inflation is going to be in 2 to 3 years? Let's make a straight line for that. Even if some supply issues mean that particular commodities are up real high, for example, steel's up 330% or something stupid like this.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Now our mowers can't be, 3 times more. So we're going to ride through some of that. But I can tell you that from what I'm seeing, I don't think there's anything transitory about the inflation that's going on. And I can tell you that I think across our industry, we're going to continue to see a lot of manufacturers continue to issue price increases mid-season, which is really rare, really rare. Our industry, most of the time, resets our lineups and our pricing in the middle of the summer because that's stable. All that inventory is built, the fall sales, the spring sales go through, and in the summertime, you evaluate where you are and you make any corrections from there. But I think we're going to see price increases move along. So, the value add with this conversation, I think, goes back to if you need equipment, the availability of it is going to be dependent on shopping early. But I also think if you buy equipment earlier this winter, you're going to end up with a better price than if you wait till later because this inflation is sticking, and there's still a lot more flow through that'll happen by the time we get to April, I think.
Wow. Well, I mean, Ed, you hit the nail on the head there with all the different economics that are going into just the world right now. But they say inflation is only like 2.6% right now.
No.
and listen, folks, I don't care what side you vote. You just open your eyes, right? That's what I tell people. Gas is 50% more money. Like the lumber for my home is $150,000 more. Liz and I did the most conservative approach to our finances ever. We literally waited an extra year to build a home to put money in the bank, only to have the extra $100,000 we saved be wiped out by the $150,000 in additional cost to build our home. And that's when Liz and I literally we cried it out about 2 weekends ago for I picked myself up, then Liz would cry, and then I would cry, Liz would pick me up, and it was just like this. We did everything right. I mean, that's the most. You guys can tell I get charged up. That was the most frustrating part. We did everything right, and so I was talking to my builder, and I said, what guarantee that we? And I'm not looking for a guarantee, but you guys know what I'm saying. I said, how do I know that things aren't going to go up another 20% on the cost of the home, and my savings are getting eviscerated by the rising costs to do the work that I'm looking to do, which goes back to the savers are losers kind of thing, which is a whole nother talk for a whole nother time. Other than
it's not true. I think it's debt has its place, but if you trip up on debt, it'll hurt. And I think there's a lot. I give you huge credit for staying debt free. Yeah.
Well, and we are, because we don't want to when the rest of the world is leveraged to the hilt like it is, and we're 12 years into since the last stock market correction.
Yep.
I'm only 35. I've only lived through kind of one, maybe two, right? 2007, 8, but the 2000s, 2001s, and I don't have the macro perspective like Ed does with him and his company and his family and all that stuff. But I just know, hey, there's times to go all in. There's times to maybe keep a couple bucks under the mattress, and that's kind of Liz and I's approach right now. And let me ask you this, maybe final question, because I do want to respect your time. I like I said, I'm just kind of hanging out here on a Thursday. We've got some 50-mile-an-hour winds blowing through, so no leaf cleanups today. But that doesn't mean that you're not building your empire, taking over the world as well, and putting out little minutia fires every day too for your company. Last quick question, and you kind of already hit the nail on the head, but what does this mean for the guy right now that has 2 mowers? He's got him and a guy that's working for him. He's got a mower at 1,500 hours, and it's at that 100,000 mile marker for his vehicle, right? Do you keep it and run it into the ground, or do you trade it in and try to get the best bang for your buck? Trade in, trade up, whatever.
Oh wow, great question.
Yeah,
it's so relevant. I was up last night modeling. I read this PhD report on depreciation of vehicles and curve fitting and all this stuff. Part of my background is mathematics, and I was taking this method and applying it to used mower prices and comparing our our repair and maintenance models against the depreciation models. I mean, that's a whole nother podcast if you really wanted to get into it. But
yeah, we'll get you back on. We'll get you back on. Sounds like you want to be a returning guest.
Your best value is under 2,000 hours. I think that, and you can pick through why some people might like 1,000 hours and some people might want to trade in at 2,000 hours. But
sure,
it's a very interesting subject.
Well, that's my quick question for somebody. Maybe that podcast, a whole nother, like you said, podcast for another time. Because I really do try to dig into the numbers. I really do. My gut, feeling to also like just some of the number feeling. Because I go to trade in a mower at my dealer, and I notice I get a certain amount at one level and a certain amount at another level, right?
Yep.
So there's actual data driving these decisions, and so. Whole nother podcast for a whole nother time, because I would like to hear your thoughts on that, and that's why I really love just getting the chat with you when I do get some of your time. But let's go back to the ordering new equipment, because you had already talked about on a previous video on your YouTube channel, and this could be just a quick wrap up point for you. Is you had said the traditional way of doing shopping in America is you go to the store, you buy it, and I think the analogy you were using was cars. You go to a Ford dealer. There's the 9 different vehicles that they make on the showroom floor. Then you go to the back parking lot, and there's 400 vehicles at your local dealer, and you buy the hopefully you have the right trim, the right color, the right options and accessories,
Yep.
and you go inside the financing office. 4 hours later, you're walking out of the dealer in a pool of sweat or a migraine headache later, one of the two, because we all enjoy that process. And you drive home with your vehicle, and it could be a same day purchase, right? In and out, as long as you got a little bit of time, and the dealer's open late on a Monday or Thursday, right? That whole deal.
Yep.
Go to your local power equipment dealer, and there's 8 Wright ZKs on the floor and 2 intensities, and it's a Wright dealer, and they got a bunch of Red Max whips and blowers. Okay, that's what we're all used to, and we've all been used to that for 2, 5, 10, 20, 30 years, depending on how long you've been in the industry. So Ed, fill me in for the newest guy to the veteran guy who's been doing this for 30 years. Maybe they need new equipment, and they have work to do. There's demand. They have contracts they want to fulfill. They want to make money. This is their livelihood. And you had said on this video that, like in Europe, that's not the actual business model of buying a car. So
right.
I think you know where I'm going with this. Can you explain how it works in Europe, and then how that might relate to buying decisions going into 2022 for these guys with their next mower purchase?
Yeah, good question. The human psychology is that once you've kind of geared yourself up to saying, "Hey, I'm serious about buying this, $8,000 or $12,000 lawnmower," you want to get that decision behind you, and you want to take the mower home. You don't want to sit on the edge of your seat any longer, and so you want to see it. You fall in love with it. You buy it. You take it home, and it's done, right?
Yep.
That's what we all like to do. And in today's environment, that doesn't work. Oftentimes you may need to commit to a piece of equipment that's in the pipeline, and it might become available in a week or 2 weeks or a month or something like that. And part of that is that it's not affordable to ship mowers one at a time into dealers. Usually they come in, groups of 6 or maybe a full truckload of mowers or whatever. And then when that truck comes in, then you come and pick it up. And so I think this spring, and certain aspects of this model might stick, but it may require, saying, "Hey, this is the piece of equipment I need," and that your dealer knows that everything's lined up for it. And then when it comes in, you close the deal. So you lose the immediate satisfaction. But if you expect it to be there and buy it the same day, you might not get what you want. I think that's a fact.
So if these guys want a new piece of equipment, like you said, maybe project what would you think would be a really conservative timeline if somebody needs to shop for a new mower, based on Wright, or maybe even just like manufacturing in general? What's a good leeway time? 2 weeks, 6 weeks, 3 months? Like what are you guys noticing out there for delivery times when somebody wants something, puts an order into it? If something's not on the showroom floor, how long could it take to get in?
I think a lot of regular items right now are flowing in 30 to 45 days.
Okay.
But that's right now. It's going to get longer as we get to spring. So if you want something in April, it now might be 6 months out. I mean, we're not really sure at this point where that's going to head. But I'll bring back up my other point. As a whole, I think that we see a lot of inflationary push through still. So I think if you need something for spring, don't think that the price is going to go down, and don't think that it's going to become more available. You may as well buy it now. And if you're financing it, there's some deferred payment options. There's different things like that. where you don't start paying until you use it in the spring. But I would say now is the best time to start lining up what you need and communicating with the dealer and saying, hey, this is what I'm looking at getting. If you're looking at a ton of equipment, buy your baseline, and then as your contracts get firmed up, then finish up the other ones. But don't wait until you have all your contracts sorted out and then think you'll be able to get all of it at one point in the future. I think today is the time to start.
That's a great tip. Well, we'll button it up right there. And I like what you said there. Think a couple weeks, maybe a couple months ahead, because right now we're recording this podcast mid-December of 2021. So when Ed is saying now's a great time, we're talking 3 months out, and maybe you don't need 3 months. Maybe you only need 30 to 45 days, like Ed said. But I'd rather err on the side of caution for you guys to get your equipment in March than to have the grass start growing in April and go calling up your dealer and going, hey, where's my mowers at? And them say, that's a great question, because you just put your order in 2 weeks prior. And I'm going through it right now with ordering a truck for next year growth and to expand our company. I put an order in probably about 3 weeks ago for a new truck, and it's the exact same scenario. Like, to get what you want, it's going to be my guy said between 2 to 4 months, and then I picked a couple different packages, and he's like, oh, that's easily 3 to 6 months. And I said, we'll ship it without the bed liner. It's going to take extra time to get in. And I said, just send it to me and I'll go get it line X. He's like, that doesn't work like that. It's like ordering a Wright ZK. Hey, the mufflers are back ordered. Well, just get me one. I'll put my own muffler on. I don't know if it works that way. You know what I'm saying, Ed? So,
yeah.
But that's fine. One last quick tip I'll say, because I think this is a really, really relevant. And if you guys haven't went to the Wright YouTube channel, I would really encourage you guys to do that, because outside of this conversation that we're having right now, this is one video, one topic that we're talking about. And Ed does a video a week, if I'm not mistaken, on a different.
About 80% of the time we do a video every week.
Yeah, which is a great schedule and a great frequency to hear from, like, the mothership. What's going on over there. If you guys are Wright owners and Wright users, for sure, that's your guys' partnered together with that. But one video that I just want to say was really helpful, Ed, that I think would be kind of a no-brainer, but I don't want people to overthink it, is you talked about, hey, because of all these supply chain issues and because things might not be as available, and you might not be able to just walk in and buy a mower off the floor, that maintenance right now is probably the second best thing you can do, other than planning ahead, is making sure that you're up to speed on all of your maintenance, your belt change, your oil changes. Don't neglect maintenance, on the equipment you have, because you may need it to run a little longer for a little bit while longer in your fleet than you might be accustomed to. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. And I would add to that, just backup equipment is really important. I mean, I heard a horror story of someone who said that he didn't have equipment he needed. It broke down and stuff was, he couldn't get replacement parts quickly enough. And out of desperation, he ended up spending $3,000 to rent a mower from one of his competitors for a month.
Wow.
Right. So, as we get into spring, be sure that what you have is maintained well. Be sure your backup stuff is maintained well. I would always say about 1 out of 10 pieces of equipment, you should have a backup of some sort, because, you don't want to, like right now, engines are really hard to get. If your engine blows, you might not be able to get an engine in the middle of spring. And so think about, your reserves. You don't want your business to be dependent on a single point of failure.
Yeah. And by the way, and I'm sure the dealers would appreciate me saying this, don't rely on your dealer to give you a loaner, because they don't have them, typically. Like our dealer, we have a zero downtime guarantee policy, like sticker. But they only have like a few mowers in that fleet because they're selling them off. Like, why wouldn't they? And so they don't have 20 mowers sitting around in the basement, for you when there's a rainy day. So don't rely on your dealer to be able to facilitate that. Now they'll bend over backwards to help you and to keep you out there. But I think on another video you were saying network with other contractors and build those relationships, because maybe your mower goes down, you can borrow buddies, and maybe your buddy, he's got this 10-acre church and he has 2 mowers and he does that lawn on Friday. But he's got that second mower sitting around through the week, and it's an older model unit, of whatever. But it still runs, still cuts. Make those connections, make those friendships, because you never know when you need to rely on each other for a truck or a mower, and that's what it's all about. So, Ed, that's what I got. We went a little bit longer. I appreciate your time, but any final words or any last minute things you want to leave these guys? But if not, we'll button it up.
No, appreciate your time. Good.
Awesome, brother. All right, guys. Well, hey, we'll let Ed Wright go back to taking care of the awesome company that they got going on. If you guys want to check them out, Wright Manufacturing and Wright Mowers, I'm sure .com or Wright.com. Check them all out. But Ed, we really appreciate you being on the show today, and keep doing what you guys are doing, man. We really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Brian. See you around.
You bet. All right, guys. Well, hey, this is another episode of the Fullerton Unfiltered podcast. Guys, thanks so much for listening, and we look forward to hearing back from you guys and catching up with you on next week's episode Monday, Wednesday, and Friday without fail at 7 a.m. And guys, thanks for listening to this episode of the Fullerton Unfiltered podcast. We'll catch you guys on the next one.
Thanks for taking the time to listen to the Fullerton Unfiltered podcast with Brian Fullerton. We hope you enjoyed this production. If so, please consider leaving us a 5-star review for the show. While the techniques and ideas presented here are designed to help you grow a more successful and profitable business, no one can guarantee these results for you. We want to emphasize that entrepreneurship is not easy, and the ideas presented here are just the opinions of Brian Fullerton and his respective guests. No one can guarantee success for you. That being said, we hope the ideas presented here help you and motivate you to go on out there and crush it with your own business.
Fullerton Unfiltered Podcast.
Thanks for listening, and we hope to see you on the next episode.
This has been a Brian Fullerton and Mr. Producer production.